Chapter 7, Episode 15 Operating Instructions Manuscript. The uninhabited island is blown away by the wind blowing from the ocean. Falma, who at the same time saved Noah and Clara and returned to the uninhabited island where the Holy Emperor and others were waiting, joined them and reported the situation. The first is to save Clara. Liken, whose ancestral spirits were destroyed, grows a grudge against the Empire. I had the report that one of the two medicine deity crests had been stolen and kidnapped by Liken. Disappointment leads to despair and invites confusion. Fumu. Let's report it. As Falma expected, he brought back the two missing people in no time. It is most important that they have returned safely. Clara and Noah, aren't they important too? Yes, it's a waste of words. Noah's face was serious. Clara hastily imitated Noah's wink. Yes, Your Highness. After Clara narrowly escaped with her life, she was shocked by the appearance of the Holy Emperor in the New World, but she was visibly relieved. The Holy Empress is the strongest user of the divine art in the world, beloved by her subjects as the mother of the country. She came directly to the rescue without returning to the country. There is nothing more reassuring than this, and loyalty is at its peak. After confirming that the two were safe, the Holy Emperor heaved a great sigh of relief. Then I turned to Falma. This is the harvest here. No way, the interrogation of His Holiness? What a harsh interrogation. Noah holds his breath. No, I was speaking normally. The Holy Emperor's answer was discouraging. The amount of information spoken by such a light-footed Holy Emperor was something Falma could only receive while infiltrating the cave alone for a short time, but it was almost unbelievable. They knew how to use firearms, but it turned out they knew how to use firearms in their own way, not in imitation of imperial expeditions. Does he have a weapon with the same principle as a gun? As Falma turned his head at the appearance of Oparts. In the past, there must have been some natives who had weapons. Admiral Jean suspects. Falma, like Admiral Jean, doubts the possibility that it was introduced from the continent and not something they developed themselves. I wonder if the people on this continent were shipwrecked and washed ashore on the new continent. Even on Earth, hundreds of years before Columbus arrived in the Americas, Norsemen came to the Americas. Even Kodayu Daikokua. It washed ashore in faraway Russia, or perhaps a shipwreck loaded with firearms washed ashore on the continent and they knew it first. Falma imagined. Look at that, it looks like a gun manual. The Holy Emperor said the illustrated parchment was proof of that and handed the rolled-up parchment to Falma. Thank you. Judging by the degree of deterioration of the parchment in my hand, I feel that several decades to 100 years have passed. These guys had this. When Falma heard this information, he regretted it. Oh, maybe the paper disappeared because I erased the cellulose. Is it your fault? Sorry. It was probably a diagram written on cellulose paper, but Falma carelessly erased it. Accidentally lost valuable cultural heritage. Falma regretted that the original was a pity, but there was no point in saying it, so he leafed through the copy on the parchment. Instruction Manual for XX. Instructions for use. Safety warning and responsibility of the user. Do not attempt to load firearms until you have read. Falma became agitated and his voice grew louder. Ellen raised and lowered her glasses, perhaps because she heard a foreign language. What did you just say? Falma was absorbed in reading for a while, stunned by the inappropriate language he had uttered. English? A nostalgic language jumped into my eyes and I almost screamed. The contents of the copy are self-explanatory. It is a copy of the handgun manual in English. Although it is a copy, it is unmistakably earthly in origin. Even the model number and release date are written. The year names here are in the Earth calendar, not the Sandflug calendar. What is that? What do you mean? There was someone who spoke English. And it's new. I want to know the source of this document right away. I am tempted to explore all the materials around it. When touching the traces of the Earth world, heart palpitations and excitement do not subside. When he comes into contact with the language of the Earth world where he lived as Kanji Yukuya, he feels a sense of security, as if he has returned to his childhood home. We can't read it, but can you read it? It's a language I've never seen before. Their pronunciation. They were fluent, but can you read this language? It's that kind of atmosphere. Elizabeth sticks her head out to the side and looks at it with interest. Do you know what is written, Thelma? Pal is also excited and agitated. Probably, there is an instruction manual for a weapon that was used in another world, not in this world. It's something that was supposed to be made in the future, and it's technologically advanced. Ellen and Pal lean forward. Future exclamation question mark. How do you know it's from another world? Is it like a hidden treasure in the temple? The reason I know it came from another world is I've seen something like it in photos and videos. Videos are like moving pictures. I'll show you next time. Thelma was at a loss for words. Because of the advanced design of the weapons brought from another world. Or maybe because of lack of materials, local residents gave up because they could not make imitations, and still only the knowledge of how to use it remained continent. Even if the weapon relic decayed and was lost, the manual knowledge remained. Thus, the basic handling knowledge was not lost. Just in case, Thelma took pictures with his smartphone camera that no one around him could see. But why is it like this? What happened to me so far? A peasant god girl I met in the gear of a hammer. It's not the earth, but it was found in another world by a grave guardian and thrown into this world. When we combine these facts, we come to a guess. There was an earthling from an English-speaking country living in this place. Perhaps he or she was found by a graveguard who was accepted by the local people and taught them how to use firearms to fight tribal conflicts, etc., or to fight wild animals. How did he or she live in this land where there is no legend about a patron deity? Across the sea, across the sacred land, and crushed by the gears of the hammer. Or did he live in this land forever? Questions and conjectures were born in Thelma's head like a furious wave. Was she a tutelary deity? However, he tilted his head. Elizabeth the Holy Emperor cannot easily obtain this material in any case, although she is currently in a hostile relationship with the natives of the new continent. First of all, Thelma had failed in his first attempt at communication. Your Highness, how did you understand their language and obtain this information? When I released a person for interrogation, that person spoke to me through an evil spirit in the language of the Empire. Some can speak through spirits, as Malene has done before. Well, there is no need to fight with each other. Thelma feels dumbfounded. The Holy Emperor showed his innate charisma and communication skills, and it seemed that his interactions were smoother than with Thelma. I'm sorry I didn't consider it an attack when the evil spirit came out. Thinking about it, I remember. It was Thelma who politely shot down Malene's relentless attempt to exorcise evil spirits. I regret that the method was one-sided and overprotective. In this respect, Thelma's experience in interpersonal combat is not as good as the Holy Emperor's. What if you observe the other person closely? You can understand their intentions even if they don't understand their words. It is one of the basics of mind reading to see if there is hostility or murderous intentions. Remember, I always thought she was impatient, but that doesn't seem to be the case. Amazing. And you know how to read minds? But that's it. As you would expect from the Holy Emperor, he is a master of diplomacy. At the same time, aside from the credibility of the mind-reading technique, I couldn't shake the fear that he was using it against Thelma. We are no longer hostile to them, at least on the surface. As a precaution, they were not released from the grid that Thelma had made, but they still supplied water and fruit. If history goes that far, it will be very helpful to Thelma as well. Thank you for the adjustment. For now, it was a relief to have to be less afraid of the indigenous people who are kept under house arrest on a deserted island. You're bad at negotiating. The Holy Emperor held his forehead in disappointment, teasing a bit. I have nothing to say. Then I should negotiate with the person named Malene. Thelma was not aware if this fierce Malene would be rounded out by her abilities. Surely it would be best to make peace with Malin and then return to the Empire, but the success rate is extremely low. Falma attended to the watch. Surely, Your Highness, if you don't return today, it will be a big deal. Falma turned pale. She must have had regular official duties. The most important thing is to get the expedition back to the capital safely, and Falma should come alone or with a small number of people to talk about the Yakushin man. Well, just to be sure, I have postponed my official duties until another day to recover from the fatigue of the large-scale exercise, he said. Wouldn't it be suspicious if I had slept for so long at a stretch? Falma was concerned that he would be asked to confirm his safety at least once. No. What is it? The day after a battle that used up my divine power, I slept for about 2 days, and those in the know didn't bother to wake me up. I'm sure you know it's hard to wake up later. It is said that he once burned a person who had come to wake him up while he was half asleep. Such a tragic accident. His Holiness aides are also in trouble. I'm glad I was okay when I slept with him the other day. In any case, Falma was relieved to learn that he had not fled the imperial capital without preparation. It was the Holy Emperor himself who said he would follow him, but it was Falma who brought him to the new continent. Falma's job is to bring the Holy Emperor safely back to his official duties. Then I have no business here, so I will release them and leave this island within half a day, he said. Falma had warned. I must leave Malin for the next time and prepare to return to the capital. Falma began to renovate the carriage that the Holy Emperor and others carried. A bag-like large material is taken out of the carriage. Is this something I will use now? Do you want me to help you spread it out? Ellen asks with interest. Yes, it's called a balloon, and it flies up into the sky with lift from air heated from below. It's called a hot air balloon. Thank you. Can you hold it for me? Wait. Are you going to fly? To the Empire? In that balloon? Word for word, Ellen confirms what's about to happen. You flew out of the Empire, didn't you? Then fly back to the Empire. Transport. To reassure Ellen, who seemed to say she felt a different level of security, Falma worked tirelessly to assemble the balloon with the help of Ellen and Pal. The assembly method gathers information on the smartphone. If the ball is accidentally ruptured, Falma will have to take a cab back and forth between this uninhabited island and the imperial capital dozens of times. Security? I made test flights. Falma gave out unreliable information. Are you sure you didn't do it with the actual size? The weight and strength will be completely different. Pale Sukomi is also in vain. Well, I do calculations to correct it. Basically, I push the flying balloon or blow it away with the wind. As I said before, the limit I can carry is 4 people. The balloon and the lift will make up for that power to carry everyone. It's not a groundbreaking idea, but to this day, continents can only be crossed by ship or plane. Malin, chief of the Myraka tribe, lay sprawled on the floor of the cave where she was stationed. I let them escape. Those 3. She regained consciousness and pounded her fist on the ground in frustration. Around her is her family, who also stood up. Malin, are you all right? Wow, that's a lot of blood. Malin's brother Ipa tends to her bleeding forehead. The wound is shallow, so there's no problem. Malin lovingly strokes the bright red on her arm, called the root of nothingness. It had a red poisonous glow and radiated a menacing presence like a live snake on her arm. Please show it to me. Is this the sacrament of the ancients? Yes. It's finally back, the boy took it. While holding the wound to her forehead, Malin slumped and refused to get up. Can't you move? It looks like I have no magic power left. I'm sorry, but please carry me. Okay, let's take it to your room then. Malin was carried on Ipa's back and returned to her room. Malin shivered as she pulled the covers over her head while villagers visited her room one by one. After she finished exchanging lives, the tension disappeared and she suddenly became weak and so scared. Who is that blonde boy? If he comes back, he might not be able to take him on. He wasn't human. His body was glowing. What was that? I couldn't look at it directly. It was too bright. It was like the sun lighting up the dark night. Also, you could have killed me. Was it easy? Can you kill it? Impossible. This must be something not of this world. It's a light being that I don't know is from another world. Light is frightening. It threatens spirits. A wave of terror came over Malene, who had suppressed her feelings. Malene, you have done your duty well. I am proud of you. Ranella, the former leader and Malene's mother, came to praise her daughter's efforts. Mother, I should slaughter them all properly, but I let them go. You don't have to hunt too deep. Ranella takes Malene's hand and comforts her. But maybe they will come back with their companions. The other party ran away. Yes, I also sensed that my life was in danger. Who was that? Malene remembers a boy with blonde hair. His body was filled with light and he had two Rudalicas in his body close to a spiritual body. It was a massive unknown energy. We were able to bring Rudalica back, but if we hadn't been careful, we wouldn't have been able to do it. You can see his fear from a distance. Rhaenyra summons her ancestors and asks them the same question. Ancestor Pearl, do you know anything about this child? The spirit called Ancestral Pearl had the appearance of a smoky old man. I have heard that there was a time when similar supernatural beings appeared in a place far from here and disappeared one by one. A formidable force capable of wiping out most of the spirits of our ancestors. You must be the king of ghosts. Are you different from our great wizard, Ares? Pearl warned him forcefully, even saying that he was the king of spirits, so Rhaenyra asked in surprise. Harith is the legendary strongest wizard of the Myraka tribe. Harith tamed the root of nothingness and taught his family how to use it. It is said that he led the Myraka tribe with infinite magical power. Probably equals or surpasses Ares. As for the nature of the spirit body, it would be just the opposite of Ares. As you probably know about Malene, it does not disappear even if you attack it. Goes beyond the material world. For its own sake, it does not touch it, it destroys ghosts with its mere presence. Rhaenyra and Malene fell silent in frustration. Come to think of it. He said he wanted to talk to me. From the expression on his face, I didn't see so much hostility from the boy. His tone was gentle, and at first glance he didn't look like a bad person. I didn't hurt Malene, and even if I chose to attack, I could feel that I was taken care of. Let's talk about it while destroying ghosts, shall we? Such a thing is usually called ruthlessly incomparable. Ancestral Spirit Pearl suspected Malene. Malene withdrew her lips and regained her overflowing hatred. Malene's grandfather and her beloved grandmother. Until last month, she could meet whenever she conjured them with magic, but even the spirits Malene was familiar with disappeared after this boy appeared. In other words, it's like destroying your family. That's right. After all, he is a vengeful enemy. The next time I see you, I will repay you even if it costs me my life. Rhaenyra shook her head and said, Don't follow me. Rhaenyra brought her ancestor Spirit Pearl back to Earth and warned Malene again. Don't think about that person and get a good rest. Okay. I'm going to bed soon. Malene replied weakly. Malene. There is a loud knock on Malene's room door from outside. Malene answered only with her voice through the door. What happened? Those who transported foreign prisoners to a deserted island still haven't returned by nightfall. What? Malene's eyes widen. The shy girl from before was no longer there. I switched to the Myraka chief's face. I should be back by evening. Malene rises quietly from her bed. I sent Itori to do recon, but they were all shot down. Really? Apparently, even under the curse of Lake Titicaca, they seem to be in a state where they can move around. Invaders in Myraka, is it possible that the dominance has reversed? That's probably true. Before the blonde boy rushed in alone, he should have tried to rescue his comrades who were captured on a deserted island. Let's go. The spell hasn't returned to Malene's body yet. But there was no time to rest. Create a magical core. We will recapture your family immediately. Identify the distance to the uninhabited island. Riding on Nitori, disguised in the darkness of night, I will launch a surprise attack from the sky. Okay. I'll prepare it right away. My brother Ipa brought the staff and spear of Malin. I will not abandon my comrades. We are all one. When we die, until we all die. Even if today is my day of death. Done. Falma took the assembled balloon to another uninhabited island, made it ready to fly at any time, and hid it behind the island. If you have a balloon by your side and get into a sudden attack, the hull will break and you won't be able to fly. I will leave here at dawn. Due to the nature of hot air balloons, it is desirable to fly at dawn or dusk when there is a large temperature difference between the inside and outside of the balloon. During the day, upwind thermal currents and strong winds blowing, especially the conditions are not good. Why are updrafts undesirable? Don't they make the balloon rise? I wonder if Pal is counterintuitive and asks questions while eating and drinking. The wind flow in an updraft is complex, and there are not only ascending currents but also descending currents. Even on the ground, flying in strong thermals is strictly prohibited. In strong thermals, the competition is even cancelled. Aha! While preparing to return, Falma built a large fort on the coast opposite the uninhabited island where the natives were located and decided to wait for Malin's attack. If Malin does not come after waiting for the time, release the natives and return to the capital in peace. The boat they came in was intact, so they should just get on and return to the mainland. That's how it works. Almost a day has passed since I met Malin. Falma, what kind of technique does a damn woman named Malin use? Pal nibbles on the dried meat and asks for information from Falma, who fought directly. Don't say things like that. This child, most of Malin's attacks can be handled by a divine art user if she calms down. Her movements are also slow. I think it's just right to predict. Judging from Pale's reaction, Falma's intentions were not conveyed. I can't imagine it. Are you using a divine ability? It's something like that. More specifically, you can turn off the water in any object that comes into Marine's field of vision. That's not the negative attributability of water. Noah is surprised to see this from Malin earlier. It's an ability that is the exact opposite of the positive attribute of us water. Pal winks at Ellen. Well, for example, if we put out as much water as Malin put out, I wonder if the effect can be offset. If that's the case, there are many users of divine water art here. This is not such a thing. Only Falma understood the nature of Malin's attacks. So you think Malin will come here? Malin will definitely come. It was Clara who spoke confidently. The reason Falma and the others didn't move against Malin was to use force to create a state where Malin was traveling, not a state where we were traveling. That's Clara's plan. Why do you know? Ah, I'm leaving now. Clara closed her eyes and sharpened her senses. They must communicate with the traveling god. What? Everyone stopped. Pal is careful while looking up to the sky. Falma kept an eye on the direction of the continent. 25 people have started the journey. You know that. That's amazing. Ellen is impressed. Unusual, there is a lot of information. Clara says she can only read so much about her allies' journeys, but she might be sensitive to her enemies' movements. Ellen starts the water magic circle. Noah blows into a headwind. Wait, you're going too fast. Clara stares at a spot and screams. Sharpening her sixth sense, she reads information invisible to Falma and the others. Isn't the means of transportation a ship? Use the magic formation against attacks. The Holy Emperor stepped into alert, raised the magic circle and gently pulled out the imperial staff. It's not a ship. It's the same as before. It will attack under the cover of darkness. A stronger wind began to blow over the sea. What emerged from the night sky was a monster bird that embodied more than 10 paintings. They ride one by one on 2 monster birds and crash down here. From the bird in the painting is triggered an attack of pebbles that embody countless monsters in the painting. They rained down locally like meteors and fell toward Falma. The powerful updraft of the Holy Emperor's circle of flame magic repelled it. "You can shoot me down." "I will." Wenpao showed his fingertips and tried to attack Ittori. As if slipping into the explosive flames of the magic circle, Malene jumped down alone and launched Brutaleka with her first move. The seawater dried up like a hole in the sea, and the sand on the bottom of the sea is dry. Material extinction. Falma drilled a hole in the Sea of Marseille and reproduced the exact situation. Malene, firing several shots at Brutaleka, made her hand go crazy. Brutaleka's shock even reached the natives who were under house arrest on an uninhabited island. In an instant, the natives are deprived of their bodily fluids and become like dried fish. But they did not die. Once dried, they began to regenerate, immediately regaining their moisture and eventually regenerating into human bodies to achieve resurrection. Falma had given this modern medicine not only to the expedition group but also to the natives so that they would not be involved in the battle. Those who receive this divine medicine will not die for one day, no matter what. Clara rushed to the edge of the front line and raised her stick. Arriving at destination. Vous êtes arrivé à destination. Claris Wand created a wall of light that stretched beyond the horizon. The monster bird that Malene and the others were riding was pushed back by Claris' wall of light as if it were being turned around. Malene, who was about to jump off Ittori and launch a raid, is caught in midair by a cocoon of light and slowly begins to sink against her will. Clara is breathing heavily on her shoulders as if maintaining her concentration even though she unleashes a divine ability. "What happened?" The Holy Spirit cries out. Clara speaks quietly to Malene and the natives who landed on the ocean with the monster bird still motionless on its back. "You can't move from there. The journey is over." Clara uses divine power while holding her stick firmly up. The light of divine ability resides radiantly in her divine staff. "I understand. Fixed coordinates of movement. Is this her divine art?" Falma understands. "My patron deity, the traveling god, can end any journey." "Is that possible?" The Holy Emperor was surprised and looked alternately at Claris and Malene's faces. "To be honest, I wanted to keep it a secret. It is dangerous to consume divine power." As if to back up these words, Clara was sweating profusely. According to the priest, an ancient user of divine arts who has a traveling god as a patron deity was able to stop the enemy's advance, kill hundreds of thousands of enemy troops, and end the journey of life. "Sorry, that's all I can do. I have no intention of hurting anyone." Clara frowns. "Isn't the divine protection of the traveling god amazing?" Ellen unintentionally makes a compliment. Falma also understood what Clara was trying to say. There is no way that a person who was in power at that time would leave something like the ability to prevent enemy forces from invading. In particular, it is bad to be seen by the Holy Emperor. However, the situation was so urgent that it was impossible to say. "How long can you keep your opponent powerless?" "Until my divine power is exhausted." Claris' voice trembles. "It's probably close to the limit." "Good." The Holy Emperor plunged into the sea, sucking up to his waist. Malene is captured by Claris' divine arts and forced to land on the water. When the Holy Emperor saw such a Malene, he smiled. When I turned my gaze to Malene, she held up a piece of paper so that she could read it. The language used by Malene and others said, "All your companions are safe and in a safe place. Our goal is not aggression. I want to stop fighting and have peaceful conversations. Raise your hands if you understand," it says. Falma believes that presenting a language they can read has about 3 meanings. The first was to communicate and reconcile with them. The second was to write under threat. The third was brainwashing in writing. But the second possibility is really low, because it is possible to create a code. In fact, I asked one of the locals to write it in the local language and had another resident read it to confirm that there were no discrepancies in the content. Falma could not predict how Malene would perceive the letter in the local language. After all, she can manipulate spirits and spy on our thoughts. And although he was incapable of action, he asked the spirit, For about 5 minutes, there was silence. A long, confrontational moment. The Holy Emperor watched her decision like a loving mother, patiently and without haste. Malene finally agreed to participate in the discussion. When Malene raised her hands and nodded, Clara's divinity crossed her boundaries.